What's up, Lindsay?
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh, pretty good.
Is it just you?
Yeah.
Just me and you today. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. Basically just for today, what we'll go over so is we'll recap last week briefly. We'll talk about what's gonna happen this week. We'll make sure that preparations in line, and then we'll go over whole life and term life, okay? The needs analysis, and then just showing you how to fill out the needs analysis on the e-app. We'll have a little break, we'll practice it, and then we'll be done with training for today. It's just basically term and whole life and the needs analysis. Okay?
Okay.
So awesome. This is the fun stuff though. So like last week, you got Tommy on Monday who went over the opportunity again with you. We also had, Drew going over some of the benefits. Tommy finished it back up on Friday. And now this week, we should be about halfway through the presentation, starting the second half. And the second half is whole life versus term and on, which is the whole reason why we're here. The whole reason we got a license was to sell the stuff that we're going to talk about. Okay. So just getting into that, after today, you'll learn a little bit about the e-app. You'll learn how to handle rebuttals proactively, and you'll pretty much finish up the training classes by Friday. The goal would be by the end of this week, you're doing 100% of the presentations and making 2 sales this coming weekend for sure, on your own, like with the management. All right. Now, I know you didn't get too much activity in over the weekend. I did talk to Jay Vaughn about that. We got to make sure the activity gets up, and that's what we're going to really drive this week. So just going into this stuff, what I will tell you is be prepared. I always like to make sure I have everything up on my screen, going into a sit. So I'm going to kind of just share my screen with you. I always have the card that the member fills out up. I have their pre-approach letter, which is what their union sends them in the mail, along with the actual mandatory read-off letter for that union. So if you're dealing with a union member, I highly suggest you reading their letter. Like, you want to read the letter that they have because it's the best one. It relates to them. If not, the generic ones on the on the e-app. So I'll explain that to you when it comes up as well. And then, basically the certificate I always have up, and then, basically the e-app. The e-app is the other thing. So let me show you here on the e-app. Now, did you get a chance to download your e-app?
No.
I know you were having some issues. You were getting the monitor. Did you get the monitor?
Yeah, it's what I'm using now. I just don't have access. I've just been using Javon's login.
Okay, so yeah, we can actually use Jay Vaughn's login here, and just for instance, what can we do? Can you see my screen, or you just see the e-app
Yeah.
right now?
I see your screen.
Okay, hold on, let's do this. So you go to aws.ailife.com, and it will take you to this screen, and then we can log in. We can use Jay Vaughn's login, which is his impact. So you got his impact already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can log in here, and then it's going to go to this. And you just click on, I'm pretty sure, AWS. And then you're going to go to support and then download. Okay. So we'll do that today on our break. We'll get that started for you.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So that's that. And just rolling into this, we're gonna try and bang this out like within an hour. All right. I'll try and give you a little bit of free time before some calls tonight. So just getting started with it. Introduction in the whole life, in term life. Let me pull up my slides. See, being prepared is important. They are not loading. Let's see. Let me re-click on it. All right, here we go. Restart slideshow. Definitely always use the slideshow. I noticed some people, when they share their screen, they'll have like just their screen up. You want to use the slideshow when you're presenting to members. And then basically, just so you know, once you get to the blank screen, it now starts to talk about life insurance. So, you know, when you're doing your presentation, you get to this blank screen. Life insurance, you know, just alert, hey, we're going to talk about life insurance, right? So what's the script going into it? It says pretty much, you know, now it's 2021 and most people we sit down with have life insurance. However, what we found out was not everyone knows what they have or how it works, right? So basically there's over 48 different types of life insurance. And, you know, they fall into these two main topics here, which is term life, which is for the if in life. And then the other one is called whole life, and that's for the win in life. So term, if you pass away while you have it, you're covered. Anything that you'll ever get offered through your work will fall under this category, okay? So as you'll see, I like to kind of click through as I'm talking as well, all right? And you know, you'll pick that up as you're practicing. But basically term typically works in periods of 10 years, periods of 20 years, periods of 30 years. We're just going to show you a quick example of a 10-year, $100,000 program. So let's just say you were 35 years old, Lindsay, and you wanted 100,000. At 35 years old, it probably cost you about $1 per day, 30 bucks a month. Okay. Now, Lindsay, you go 10 years down the road, you hit 45. And if you wanted to keep that same coverage that you got 10 years prior, what do you think would happen to the cost if you wanted to keep it? Go up, right? But do you see what I'm doing? I'm engaging the client. I'm making them interact with me, okay? And I'm asking questions because I really need them to pay attention, okay? So yeah, you're right. And what happens is it goes up, and when it goes up, it tends to double. Now, let's say they got that wrong, which they guys goes down. I wouldn't be like, no, you're wrong. I'm not gonna like, you know, bash them for being wrong. I'm gonna say, actually with this type, what happens is it goes up. You know, so then 10 more years go down the road, Lindsay, and you're 55, you still want to keep that same coverage you got 10 years prior. What do you think would happen to the cost?
And then they say that it goes up.
Yep, you're right. And it doubles again. And then here's the kicker though, is you make it to the age of retirement. Now we all hope to get there, you know, pensions, 401k, some people even get Social Security, right? You can finally start getting some of this money. And then what they do with your insurance is they do one of two things. One, either they raise it right through the roof where it's pretty much unaffordable, or two, what they'll do is they'll just cut you off and say you're no longer allowed to have it. So Lindsay, we consider this type like renting because families will pay into it over the course of their whole entire lives. They'll make it to a certain point, and then if they outlive that point, they give the keys back to the landlord. There's nothing left. Now, I'm not ever going to bash term. It's great for certain things. You know, it's good for income protection. It's good for mortgage protection. It's good for debt protection, but it's not meant to be in place forever. Okay. Now, the other type, they call that whole life, and that's for the win. It's inevitable. We're all going to pass away. None of us know when, right? So the same person, 35, 100,000, it's going to be more like 80 bucks a month. But here's the thing. Once they get it, it stays locked in forever. So you can be 45, you can be 55, you can have a heart attack, get cancer, make it to the age of 100 years old, and it's still guaranteed to be there for your family when the time comes. It also builds up cash value. So just like people have savings accounts, right? I'll ask, you know, Lindsay, do you have a savings account? Yeah. Okay. Do you know what the interest on your savings account grows at nowadays? You know, usually it's like 0.25% to 0.5%. Sometimes you'll hear people say 1%, right? Well, you know, this is kind of like a savings account as well, but it builds your money at 4.5%. So not only are you protecting your family, but you're saving money at 20 times the rate the bank can do it as well. It also develops paid up options. So, you know, Lindsay, just like people pay off their cars, or, you know, you ever had someone pay off their home, hear that before? You can actually have your life insurance paid off as well. So between term and whole life, which one makes the most sense for your family?
Whole.
Whole life. Why did you say that, Lindsay?
It's predictable.
Okay, great, great, yeah. And I want to ask the client that, I want to ask them, because sometimes clients want term. If they want term, give them term. You know what I mean? Don't try to sell them whole life. Like I had a guy who was like, man, Josh, this went so good. I went over term and whole life. And, at the end, the guy said the term made the most sense. And then I went into it and I was trying to sell him the freedom of choice certificate with some whole life. And he was telling me, no, he didn't want it. I was like, well, because you told him he wanted term and you were trying to sell him whole life. You know what I mean? So, basically just know, some people do want term too, and it's not the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now,
especially since there's a lot of people that follow Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. See, buy a term, invest the rest, right? So, list of concerns. This is when when to talk about the list of concerns. All right, it pops up on the screen. All right. So, Joe and Mary, over the years, we've all gone through contract negotiations and benefits changes. And it seems as if we're always a give or take, and we start getting less, and at the same time, we're paying more. During these contract negotiations and benefits changes, the members, us, brought a list of concerns to make sure that we had something permanent and portable to protect those concerns. So the first area was going to be for the lack of permanent and portable benefits. They're finding out that when we retire, unfortunately, our benefits get cut back so much, it's almost like there's nothing there. And, diving into it, the first area that they looked at on this circle here was for funeral and final expense protection. So the second concern was for your funeral and final expense protection. Now, you want to ask questions. Joe, if something were to happen to you, did you ever think if you would want to be buried or cremated? I'd be like, Lindsay, if anything were to happen to you, did you ever think, would you want to be buried or cremated?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are you leaning towards?
Cremation.
Cremation. Okay. And do you know what the average cremation costs nowadays?
Well, now I do.
Right. So I'll make them guess. Or I'll say, and if they don't know, I'll say, did anyone in your family, recently pass away that you guys had to go through this? And I'll try and get them to come out and tell me, a story of when they had to go through a funeral or were a part of their funeral. I mean, everyone's been to a funeral. You know what I mean? Everyone's been to a funeral. Most people have. Okay. So basically, final expense. She said cremation, right? You said cremation. I'm gonna basically tell you, average cremation nowadays $3,000 to $7,000. If you want buried, it's gonna be $7,000 to $15,000. That's today. Every 20 years, Lindsay, what happens is the cost doubles, though. It's inflation. Every 20 years, even the materials used to make the chair you're sitting on will double. Okay. So this is the only area that the company is going to recommend whole life protection for any of our members. So if you run the needs analysis, it's only going to recommend whole life for this. That's it. And that's because we all have two guarantees in life: death and taxes, right?
Yep.
And I'm from an area where I've seen people get around taxes, but I never seen anyone get around the death one, right? So the next concern that they had for the members was going to be our loss of income. Now, if they have a spouse with them, I'll ask them. I'll say, Joe, imagine if a family has a main income earner and they lost that income earner. They wouldn't be able to live without the breadwinner's earnings. Breadwinner's earnings. There we go. Same as if, God forbid, something were to happen to you, Mary, and I make them both feel included. And I'll say, if God forbid something were to happen, for a month and you lost Joe's income, would that make a difference in your household? What about a year? Can you imagine forever? So Joe, what they did was they set up to have at least 3 to 5 years of your income being protected, basically saying it's hard enough without you. Imagine without that paycheck. We'll still make sure that paycheck will come home to your family for the next 3 to 5 years. The next concern that they had for the members was our mortgage. Now, Joe, do you rent or own? I'll ask them. If they own, just going to help you out real quick. There's usually 2 types of mortgages, 30 years and 15 years. So if they own, okay, Just ask them, and you should know from rapport how long they lived in their home. If they say they've been there for 3 years, do the math for them. Say, okay, Joe, when you got your mortgage, did you do a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage? And if they did a 30-year mortgage, 3 minus 30 is what? 27. So Joe, it looks like you have about 27 years left to pay off the house, right? Okay. So what they found is most homeowners had a mortgage, and the problem was is the mortgage payment was left behind to the surviving spouse. So Joe, I can imagine if something were to happen to you, then Lindsay, you would be the one responsible for the mortgage. All I did was I brought the problem to the top. We already knew what it was. They just weren't thinking about it.
Right. It wasn't a priority on their minds.
Exactly. So we use words like problem and concern. The concern was, Joe, is that if something were to happen to you, then I'm assuming, Mary, you would be the one responsible for the mortgage. Telling you, that's a winner right there. All right, and then we have, the next concern here, and like I said, if they own, do the math for them. If they rent, 3 to 5 years of rent protection. Imagine losing.
Especially if they're in like a lease, like they're held liable to that.
Yeah, I think some leases might let them out if you die, but I don't know. You never know. So I would just
depends on the landlord.
Yeah. So I would say, listen, one, you wouldn't want to have to have Mary, be responsible for the mortgage, or the rent the month after losing her best friend when she hasn't even worked in 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So definitely, and tie it into the income protection, 3 to 5 years typically. Or if they have children, until the kids are 18, and so they don't have to move neighborhoods or change schools, And then the last area is going to be for child education and debt protection. Now, if one of the parents or both of the parents pass away, the chances of a child going to college go down drastically. So this always works. This makes me money in every single house. Lindsay, if you want your kids to go to college, great. If you're no longer here, can we give them that opportunity? What do you think they're going to say?
No.
No, you don't want to give your kids an opportunity to get an education if you were no longer here?
Well, the potential is low or unlikely.
Yeah, so what I ask the client is I'll say, Joe, if something were to happen to you, if you want them to go to college, great. But if you're no longer here, can we at least give them an opportunity to get an education? All parents are usually going to say, yeah, right? And when they say, yeah, I'll say, well, you know how much college costs, right? I met a guy yesterday. He actually, I went to West Virginia. His daughter's going to West Virginia. She's a senior now. I was like, that's a nice shirt, man. Let's go Mountaineers. He's like, man, you know how much this shirt cost me? I was like, I do. He was like, yeah, this t-shirt was about $130,000. I was like, wow. Right? So basically, it could cost $20,000 to $100,000 per child to get an education. Plus. So the last area that they looked at was qualifying health and affordability. Even though these were huge concerns, they wanted to make sure that if something was affordable for the members and something that the members could try and qualify for. So Joe, they always make me ask this question. Keep in mind that there's no right or wrong answer. But if you can guarantee one of these concerns would be taken care of, which would be the most important to your family?
Are you asking me? I mean, obviously final expense, but also debt.
Final expense, you said right now? Okay. And then debt was your second?
Yeah.
Okay. And why did you say final expense?
I mean, it's always a given.
Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah, I just like to hear what people are thinking. There's no right or wrong answer. And you want to make sure they answer. Now, if you're taking notes, you can also write what I just asked you there was the most important part of the closing process. What we just went right there when we just asked that question. Now, Joe, they always make me ask this question. Keep in mind, there's no right or wrong answer. But if God forbid you come home from work tomorrow and you can guarantee one of these concerns to be taken care of for the rest of your life or forever, which would be the most important to you? That is the most important part of the closing process. And then you ask why. Mm-hmm. So now I bring them back and I have my needs analysis already prepped. And I say, so your last no cost benefit, Joe, is called your needs analysis survey. What I like about this is it's going to take into account your current situation and determine if you have any gaps in your coverage. If you have any gaps in your coverage, it's going to show you the recommends. However, if there's none, nothing will pop up. So Joe, I got everything in here for your AIL Plus card. You typically want to do this as quickly as possible. I like to get it done before I get to it, just so I could keep the presentation moving. So, basically we've got Joe in there. Let's add in Mary Smith as well, his wife. Add a nice little family in here for us. Typically you'll have the husbands, but you got to get the wife's birthday. And then we'll just pretend they got little Joey Jr. As their child, okay? All right, so we got the family in there. Now, when you do this, all right, this is just going to be on these three, nobody else. So these questions are not for their grandma or their grandpa. It's not for their mom and dad. It's just for them. So any internal cancers in the past 2 years, breast, colon, pancreatic, urine, no. Any insulin, diabetes, no. Okay. Any cardiovascular diseases, heart attacks, strokes, no. Okay. Any oxygen tanks, terminal illnesses, Alzheimer's, sometimers. All right. Have you used any form of tobacco in the past 12 months? No. Okay. And exclude from application. If you click it, it's just going to exclude them from the application. You guys currently on probation or parole? No. Any arrest or conviction of DUIs? Okay, great. And then household information, Joe, roughly what do you bring home a month take home pay? So let's say he's 3,000 and what happened there? Let's say Mary was 3,000 as well. Okay. And then do you currently have any life insurance through your job? Let's just say, he don't have any and she has 10,000 through her work. Anything outside of work? No for him. Oh, come on, mouse. Anything outside of work? Let's say he has no. She has 10,000 that her mom got on her when she was a little kid. And he has $100,000 through his car insurance, let's just say. What the heck is going on here? All right. And then they own their home. Let's say there's 220,000. Interest rate does not matter. You can use 3 to 4%. Okay, either one works. Let me see what's going on here with this thing. Interest rate, yeah, it don't matter. Let's see. This keyboard is funky on me.
It doesn't like you.
It better start. All right, what's going on here? There we go. 3%. We said he had 27 years left. And then look, if you forgot to ask that question, it's right here. Do you have mortgage insurance to pay off your mortgage in case of death? And then, have you saved anything up for your kids' education? Let's just say no. You always want to click checking. So you want to make sure they have a checking account. And I always keep it on inflation. Once you hit submit, it's going to think here. All right. Now, this is typically when I would stop sharing and I would pull up their mandatory read-off letter. Okay. So it would be, I guess, it would be have it ready to rock. And this is their mandatory read-off letter. I would zoom in on it, read it to them. Hey, Joe, I got to read you your mandatory read-off letter before we can move any forward. And then I'm reading it. I'm reading it all the way to the bottom. I'm saying, in solidarity, Bill Martin, who's the business manager down there at the union. right? After you read the letter, you bring them back to you, you hit them with your so basically. So basically, Joe and Mary, here's the way that it works. Is if I'm going through your benefits, you're nodding your head thinking these are really great benefits. I can see why they had it set up and all the members were excited about it. Then you're gonna ask you to try and qualify. On the flip side, I go through your benefits. You're like, you know what? These are really great benefits, but they just don't feel a need for me or my family. Then we're actually gonna ask you not to try to qualify. Either way, yes or no, that decision does need to be made today, just in fairness to all the other members waiting to enroll. The great part about the benefits, though, is they're pretty much a no-brainer. So you're going to know at the end whether or not it does fill a need for you or your family. The only thing they wanted me to ask you is if I go through these benefits and if you have any questions at all, will you just stop me and ask me? Okay, great. Either way, your group, they still value your opinion on our officer report form. It's basically like my report card, goes back to the union, let them know I did a good job for you. Okay? So at that point, I'm going to pull back up my needs analysis. And just so you know, as the agent, this is what it's going to go over for them. So it's going to go over FE for him. What's FE? Final expense. GIO for him, guaranteed insurability option. IP, income protection. MP, military police. No, I'm just kidding. Mortgage protection. CE, child education. Okay. That's what's going to go over for him. And it's going to go over this for her. Now, you hit continue. If you don't have a mandatory read-off letter from your group or your union, you're sitting down with a referral, child safety kit, you can read off this one, okay? And it pops up automatically. And then we roll into the benefits. So, Lindsay, let's examine the need for final expense protection. I'm gonna play this clip because I don't know if you ever watched it before. You ever watched this clip before?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So
With Javon.
we're gonna play it just so you get a chance to, watch it again. All right.
Okay.
The warmth of family is one of the most beautiful and valued things in life. For this reason, saying goodbye to a loved one can be difficult, and even more so when we are not prepared. The emotional distress adds to the financial burden. It can be devastating to lose the family savings or even the family inheritance. The average cost of a funeral continues to rise, and these expenses can be higher depending on where you live. Keep in mind that funeral and cemetery expenses increase each year due to inflation and other economic factors. At 4% a year for the next 20 years, the cost of a funeral will have risen above $30,000. Expenses become even more overwhelming when you consider that Social Security only pays a $255 death benefit, and that's if you qualify. That still leaves all of the expenses for your family to cover. The last thing we want is to leave our loved ones in this kind of situation when we perish, isn't it? That's why it is important to anticipate for future events with preparation. Otherwise, who would be responsible for those unforeseen and sometimes escalating expenses that no one is ready for? We all want our last goodbye to bring comfort and leave a loving memory of us in the hearts of our loved ones. However, these good feelings can be diminished when we do not have coverage for final expenses and a burden is presented that could mean thousands and thousands of dollars. For this situation, American Income Life recommends our whole life policy along with the Freedom of Choice certificate. The process is simple and can be used to cover your final expenses up to the face value of your policy. Your beneficiary takes the certificate to the chosen funeral home, agrees to the service details, and writes the total amount on the back, signs it, and hands the certificate to the funeral home director. When the service is needed, the funeral home director calls the number on the certificate to speak directly to a claims representative. Payment is made directly from our company to the funeral home, and the remainder, if any, is paid to the beneficiary in a lump sum check. The decision is simple, and your family deserves it. Obtain final expense coverage, which allows you to have the Freedom of Choice certificate. That way, you will help avoid many problems for your loved ones. Today, you can enjoy the tranquility of knowing in that inevitable moment, there will be peace. If you're giving them the best today, prepare for tomorrow. Leave them only beautiful memories. Love is shown with action.
All right, so I wanted to play that for us, just so you can see. And then after you play the clip, I bring them back to me and I recap it. So Lindsay, the reason why they had us play that, video for the members is, one, it actually refreshes everyone on what actually goes into a funeral. Let's face it, nowadays they say funerals are almost as big as a wedding. The only difference between a wedding and a funeral, Lindsay, is a wedding, you could plan it out for a year, you could push it back, heck, you could even cancel it, right? But a funeral, you got like 2 or 3 days to get everything done. So in that time, the company wants to make it as simple as possible for us members. So what they do is they created the freedom of choice. And how this works, Lindsay, is the worst time of your family's life, not if, but when, they'll go down to their choice of any funeral home. Now, your family's not going to go in there saying, hey, Lindsay got 30,000. What can I get? Because guess how much they're going to charge you?
The 30,000.
All 30,000, right? So what we do is we just put a policy number on the back here. It allows the family to negotiate the cost right here. Once they come up with the amount, they'll fill it in. They'll sign it down here like it says blank beneficiary, like a blank check. Hand this certificate back over to the funeral home director, and they're done. They don't have to do anything from that point on. Now, at the worst time of your family's life, Lindsay, they just lose you. The funeral home is going to want paid when?
Immediately.
Immediately. He's going to say, I'm sorry for your loss. How are you going to pay for this? So instead of him bothering your family for a check, he'll simply call this number right here on the front. They'll send out 2 checks immediately. One for whatever was negotiated on the back, going directly to the funeral home. Anything that's left over will go back to your family within a week in a lump sum, tax-free check to wrap up additional costs, take care of income, pay off the house, all the things that need to be handled. So, Lindsay, do you have any questions on how your freedom of choice certificate works? No? Okay, Joe, do you have any questions on how your freedom of choice certificate works? No? Okay, great. Now, this is what the expert simulator recommends. So Lindsay, the expert simulator recommended, for Joe here, $30,000 of whole life coverage in force to guarantee that his funeral and final expenses will never be a burden to the family ever again. Right now, you actually have an existing of 0 of whole life, Joe. So there still is a need of 30,000. In the expert simulator, it was actually recommending making sure that need of 30,000 was protected so that your funeral and final expenses will never be a burden to your family ever again. Now, Mary, the expert simulator for you recommended 30,000 as well. Right now, you actually have an existing of 10, from that policy your mom got on you when you were a little kid. So you still have a need of 20. The expert simulator was recommending making sure you had that need of 20,000 protected so that your funeral and final expenses will never be a burden to your family ever again. Let's examine the need for monthly income protection. Typically skip over this video. 5 years of your income, Joe, came out to roughly around 180. It's showing you actually have 100,000 set up through your car insurance. So you still had a need of 80,000, and the expert simulator is recommending making sure you had that need of 80,000 protected so that your income would be protected for the next 5 years for your family. Mary, 5 years was 180,000 as well for you. You have 10 because your work gives you that set up. So you still have a need of 170, and the expert simulator was actually recommending making sure you had that need of 170,000 protected. So you would have a full 5 years of your income protected. Let's examine the need for mortgage protection. This is, look, it says primary. So this is going to go on who's the primary? Joe. Okay. So you got to keep an eye on that. So primary, so Joe, the expert simulator recommended 220,000 of whole life coverage, or not of whole life coverage, of mortgage protection in place to guarantee that if something were to happen to you over these next 27 years, your mortgage will just be paid off. So right now you have an existing of 0. you still have a need of 220. The expert simulator is recommending making sure that need of 220 was protected. So if something happened to you, the house can be paid off for Mary as well. And then last area is going to be for child education. And this is going to be on you as well, Joe. If something were to happen to you, they wanted to have $100,000 set aside for little Joey Jr. to get an education. Showing we have an existing of 0, still a need of 100, was recommending covering that full need. Now, I'll tell you this, Lindsay, before you hit this continue button, you want to stop sharing. So you want to bring them back to this. Okay? But I'm going to share because I want you to see what pops up. So I want you to tell me the first thing you see when I hit next, okay? What's the first thing you looked at?
The different things that you can click, but then all of a sudden I saw the price.
Got it. Most people look right at the price. Okay. And then
I have a huge screen, so it was like I saw what was physically right in front of me, and then it's like, oh, price.
Yeah.
I have a huge 27-inch monitor, so it's like,
sweet.
whoop.
Heck yeah. You got the setup.
I do.
But yeah, most people, they look right at the price. Okay. So they get sticker shock sometimes.
Yeah.
Holy cow, $265. Some people say, oh, is that it? You know, but just so you know, you can mess around with the benefits right here and change them too. Like if you wanted to give him 50,000, you just type in 50, hit recalculate, and it will change it. You know, so you can change stuff as well over here if you'd like. We're just gonna keep it.
Their priority may not be the spouse.
Yeah. Yeah, we can move things around, everything. Next benefit, look, see this? Next benefit, you got to click that. Anytime you see that next benefit here, you got to keep clicking it because that will get you all the way to this continue button. You got to click it, continue. This is important. Once you see continue, you click continue, and then all kind of stuff comes up. You can mess around with all these up here still, you know, if you'd like. You can add on stuff, okay? And we added on the waiver premium. We say we wanted to put the mortgage on for the spouse. Say we also wanted to have the child education for the spouse added on there. We can do all that. You can change it, look, 5 years to 3 years. Hers the 1 year we can change it to. Look, we could even change hers to 1 year. Right? And then we can also mess around with everything in there, but this is a cool box too. View recommended monthly premium. So the expert simulator, based on what they bring home a month, took in consideration their income. 5% of their monthly take-home pay came out to $300 a month. The premium that we're using to build this program was $286.91, saved them $13 a month, and basically they can get a program for under 5% of what they bring home a month. Okay. Now, when you hit submit, all right, it takes you to the super combo. We're not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to hit return the survey because I want you to practice and you don't have it yet. So I got it all right here. Okay. So let's take a little 10-minute break. All right. Let's hop back on. Let's just say 150. And, you know, basically we'll practice it. I'll have you go over it. So pull up your slides, at least pull up your slides. I'll pull up my e-app and you can go through that, you know, with me on here with you. Okay.
Okay.
And then we got to get that e-app starting to download too at some point today.
Okay.
All right. I'll see you in about 150, 10 minutes.
So do you want me to download it now?
Yeah, if you want to. It's going to take some time. It's not going to be done by the time that, you know, we're back on. But yeah, you might as well, if you know how to do it.
Okay.
If not, we'll walk you through it, you know, in a little bit here. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.